Thank you for your patience. We are live again. We are live again.
Thank goodness.
Yes, we are streaming. Thank y'all for your patience while we were getting this set up.
Yeah, technical difficulties.
Yeah, our lead tech's not able to be here with us today. Okay, we are streaming live from the page.
Okay, that's fine.
Not a live event.
That's fine.
All right.
I just have to do it that way for a while.
We have to.
That's okay. Ooh, I don't know. These lights are glaring. I don't know if you'll be able to see or not.
Mhm.
But okay. So we're getting a little bit later started than what we wanted, but we're getting there. This is the first class of the season, of the year. This is also the first class since COVID hit. Obviously, for safety reasons, we didn't hold classes during COVID, but now that everything's kind of getting, I don't want to say back to normal, but somewhat back on an even scale, you know, we'll get it going. We got great things happening. Sorry. We have, one thing I want to stress is that if you become an active member or are an active member of the team, you are required to be at classes, meetings, and fundraisers. It means if you have filled out one of these and you've read the rules and have filled out, hold on, this page back here. I know you probably can't see it because of the lighting, but there's a page back here at the very back part of the rule book that you fill out. It's got your name, date of birth, email, your age, address, etc. If somebody referred you to the team, who referred you, the type of team role that you want to do, how'd you hear about us, etc. And then yes, there is a small essay on the back, the very, very back. It's just to tell us about yourself and what you're looking to get out of the team. And then the very, very back, you sign it, and then I sign it. And then at the very bottom, we'll have to have your shirt size and whether or not you want a hat or a visor. So if you do or have filled out one of these, or come to a meeting and you do fill out one of these, become an active member, then you are required to be here, because if we have upcoming investigations, such as say we go to Waverly, which we're going to be in the talks with them pretty soon, about looking into getting, hopefully, fingers crossed, a 72-hour lockdown at Waverly. You would need to be at the class that would be centered around Waverly. You would need to be at the meeting, and then you would need to be at the debriefing meeting. So it's imperative that you be here. If for some reason you can't, family emergency comes up, things like that, then get a hold of one of the team members, myself, Michelle, or hit us up on our pages, the Facebook page. We do have our website, which is
TriStateParanormalSociety.org.
So TriStateParanormalSociety.org is our webpage. And on our webpage, you will see the classes and the meetings and dates, times, places, as well as our fundraisers, dates, times, places. Our first fundraiser is coming up May 27th at Advanced Auto Parts on Park Avenue, right across from Noble Park. It is a car wash and a grill out. Starts at 8 a.m.
We need volunteers.
Even if you're not an active member, but you want to volunteer your time, I mean, you don't have to do that day. If you want to volunteer your time, you're more than welcome to come out, help out, hold a sign on the side of the road, dance around, act a fool. If you know how to grill, you can help grill the hamburgers, hot dogs, you can help wash the cars. Volunteers are always helpful. We always need volunteers. We are now, as of April 5th, right? It's 5th?
Mm-hmm.
We are recognized as a nonprofit organization in the state of Kentucky.
Yeah, I registered with the state.
And we are registered with the state. They do recognize our organization. We are in the process of, one of the things for our fundraisers and why we're doing this is to raise money to get our 501c3 tax exempt status.
Jody is with us in Illinois.
Hello, Jody. How are you? Maybe you can come visit sometime. So we are, some of the exciting things, I know I'm kind of going on with this, but some of the exciting things is we're looking, hopefully, if everything works out the way we want it to, pan out to do and participate in Barbecue on the River, if everything works out the way we want it to. Which we're trying. We're talking with the people that put on Barbecue on the River to get everything set up and finished up for that. And of course, that's the 3-day event or whatever it is in September.
We now have months and months notice that we're doing Barbecue on the River.
This is now April. Barbecue on the River is in September. I believe it's the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, I believe, of September. So you have plenty of notice. So if you're an active member, you have plenty of notice on when Barbecue on the River is. When it comes to classes and meetings, you will have plenty of notice because I always book the rooms months in advance. So we will be bouncing back and forth every other month between Marshall County Library, which is where we're at right now, to McCracken County Library, which is what will be taking place in May. So in May, on the 6th and the 13th of May, we will be at McCracken County Library upstairs. That way, people who don't live in McCracken County but can get up here to Marshall will have a better way to get up here to Marshall. And those that are in McCracken, if they can't get to Marshall, then they can come to the classes in McCracken, at the McCracken County Public Library. If you know of any places that we could host fundraisers, whether it's a bake sale, whether it's a car wash, whatever, or if you have any ideas for fundraisers, please reach out on the page, whether it's the Facebook page or the web page, and let us know. And we do have some online fundraising that is going on right now. It's a popcorn online fundraiser. So I believe the link is on the website, or did we put it on the Facebook page too?
On both.
Oh, okay. So it is on both. I'm sorry. Michelle normally heads all that up. Let me tell you, Michelle, she has been on top of everything. I think, and also when you come to class, we'll have a sign-in sheet so you can sign your names and let us know that you were here. Same thing for fundraisers. When you get to the fundraising site, you'll put your name, and that way we know who all was there, who all was accountable in that field, and how that goes. So, with that being said, on to the class itself. The first several classes are probably going to be considered boring to some because it is going over definitions and what it is, as what paranormal means, and things of that nature. So I promise once we get through this boring aspect of it, if you will, then we will get on to bigger and more upbeat things. So, a lot of people think, of the paranormal as ghost hunting. While to some, yes, that is what it is. They go hunt ghosts. However, I myself consider as a paranormal investigator, because what do? We investigate. We go and investigate, we go to locations, and we basically become like detectives, if you will. So the word paranormal means something that is beyond normal, something that is not normal, something that cannot be rationally explained, if you will. It cannot be explained in conventional science. It cannot be explained by rational means. If you can't say, okay, well, this is what it is, then it's considered paranormal. When you hear paranormal, what is one of the first things you think of? Ghosts, right? Well, that is true. Well, that is true, but there's a lot more to the paranormal field than just ghosts. There really is. But the top 10 things that we encourage people about when approaching the paranormal world, read all you can about ghosts, psychics, hauntings, residual hauntings, everything and anything you can get your hands on when it comes to the paranormal. The more research you do, the more knowledgeable you become. Nobody can consider themselves an expert because the paranormal field is constantly changing, always changing. Write down any paranormal experiences that you yourself may have had, your family has had, whether it was your mother, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, any paranormal experiences. That way you can compare it to with what you know and say, okay, hey, this is what this is. Or if you have a family member saying, hey, this is what I've heard or this is what I felt, but nobody was there when I turned around, then you could say, hey, look, this is what this could have been. Let's investigate this, let's see what this is. But always maintain an open mind. Because again, with the paranormal field constantly changing and things changing, new equipment coming out, people coming and saying, hey, this is what's going on, you don't always want to jump automatically to the paranormal. That's where debunking comes in. I believe in debunking, but I don't believe in always investigating to debunk. Because what we may think is not what happened doesn't mean it did not happen to them. And so when we're investigating, let's say, a residential, they come to us and say, hey, this is what's going on. But we go and investigate. We do a 3-night investigation. And nothing happens. Just because it didn't happen when we investigated it doesn't mean it didn't happen to them. So we have to always make sure we take their feelings into consideration when we're doing things like this. But always be prepared for the uncharted territories. Always. There's been several that I have come across through my years of paranormal experiences, through the several years of the paranormal field, investigations that I've done where I have been in complete uncharted territory. And that is where knowing somebody, whether it's clergy, whether it's somebody who's been in the field a little bit longer than you, says, hey, this is what happened. I don't know what to do. I have reached out, actually, have had to reach out several times to a friend of mine when I've come across something that I don't know how to handle or how to deal with. If I don't know the answers, best believe I will find somebody who does. I've got a lot of friends who are clergy. I've got a lot of friends who have been in the paranormal field a lot longer than me, who've been on hundreds, thousands of investigations that I can message and say, hey, look, this is what's going on. I've done this, this, and this, but nothing's working or nothing's helping. Where do I go from here? But you can also keep a journal. Like when we go on investigations, if something happens to you personally, when we get done, keep a log of it, and then write it down. Because writing things down has a lot of, you can go back and look throughout the years that you started. So let's say where you went on an investigation on May 15th of this year, okay? And you had an experience, but nobody else did. You can take a journal and write it down and then go on, let's say you go on another investigation and something else happens but is not exactly the same, then in a year's time, you can go back and through all the investigations that you've gone in through over that year and say, hey, look how far I've come. Set goals for yourself that, not everybody sets out to have a paranormal experience. I mean, don't get me wrong, everybody wants to have paranormal experiences, just to say they did. But a lot of people, the paranormal is not for the faint of heart. It's really not. If you participate in any psychic experiments involving pendulums, scrying, seances, or any other means of divination, that is your prerogative, but use caution. Always use caution when you're using divination tools. I don't use Ouija boards. I will not. I don't advocate for them at all, because a lot of times people have no idea what they're doing when they're messing with them, which then opens up, guess what, a portal, which then allows things to come through, and a lot of people don't know how to put that stuff down, or they don't even know how to close it right, which is not a good thing, which then that usually involves bringing us, the paranormal groups in because somebody's having paranormal experiences because they wanted to mess with the Ouija board and had no idea what the heck they're doing. Do I say don't mess with them? No, because everybody can handle things like that at different levels and different things. Some people can handle a seance just fine. Some people can handle messing with Ouija boards just fine because they know what they're doing, because they've done what? Their research. They've done their research. They know how to deal with it. They know how to mess with it. They know how to close it. They know how to open it, etc., etc. Do your research. Always do your research before trying to mess with anything divination-wise. And if it's something you're interested in, find somebody who knows something about it. Ask them questions. Ask questions in general. One of the things that I'm sure all of y'all have probably heard about Ed and Lorraine Warren, God rest their souls, but one thing that I took away when watching a lot of the interviews with Lorraine Warren is they say that it doesn't matter, you can have $1,000 worth of equipment, but the best equipment you will ever have is yourself. If you're going to...
What you're saying with someone having a problem, it's two different things.
Is it really?
It's not repeating what you're saying.
Shouldn't. This should just be recorded. Hang on a second, guys. I have no idea what is going on with this.
I know my hearing's bad, but I know I'm not hearing two different things. Very strange. Our normal tech person couldn't be here today because of family things, but so if you're reading whatever's at the bottom of the screen and it's not looking right, it's not following
it.
There it goes.
Just do.
It's on a delay. Did you just now walk back? Your room's on it already?
But anyway, Lorraine Warren said the best tool you have to use is yourself. If you go into, let's say we go on an investigation and we go in, for instance, let's go to Waverly. Most everybody knows what Waverly is. They know what it's about. But you go into a certain room and something just feels off about that room, something doesn't feel right, chances are it is. Not just because it's Waverly, but because there's just something about that particular room that just may not sit right with you. And it may just be only you that experiences, and that's okay. Always, if you haven't had the chance to look up anything about Ed and Lorraine Warren, I suggest that you do. They are the pioneers of the paranormal field. They brought the paranormal field out into the open before it became the paranormal field. in all honesty. But just because we go on an investigation, don't expect it to happen all the time. Because we can go to a location, even something as famous as Waverly or Trans-Allegheny or Mansfield Reformatory, and we know these places are haunted. We've seen other teams go to these places and their experiences, but we go and nothing happens. It happens that way sometimes. It really does. But at the same token, be prepared completely to be totally amazed. Because we can go somewhere and let's say we go to a residential and they say, oh, well, this is happening, things are getting moved around, cabinets are opening, this, that, and we get there and it may be something that we are not necessarily not familiar with, but it's something that's even more exciting, or we get there and nothing happens, which has happened a lot, but because it doesn't happen on command. We can ask questions, we can do what we do, and go that route, but they don't always happen. I've had paranormal experiences since I was 3. My first experience with an apparition was my grandmother on my father's side, and she was in a nearby car wreck, and she was at the hospital, and I was at home, and it was just me and my mom there, and I was talking, apparently, according to my mother, that I was talking in my room, but I was the only one in my room. And Mom came and asked who I was talking to, and I told her that I was talking to Ninny, which was the name that I gave my grandmother. And she's like, honey, Ninny's in the hospital. And I said, no, Ninny died. Me and my mother went back and forth like this for a good few minutes, and then my mom got a phone call that my grandmother had passed away 5 minutes before that. So I've had paranormal experiences even since I was little, which I guess is kind of where my love for the paranormal stems from. Having paranormal experiences when you're younger, and then building it up, and then seeing people that have had similar paranormal experiences, and you're like, hey, I've been through that. I've had it. What is that called? That's where your research comes in. And that's a lot of what these classes are about. Sorry, guys, I've got a dry mouth today. An apparition is the projection or manifestation of a paranormal being. Full body apparition. Let me tell you, to get a picture or a video of a full body apparition manifesting, it is something that most paranormal investigators live for, because that is what we consider Class A. That is something that we strive to want to see. Any paranormal experience, really, but mainly to get to physically see a full body apparition is mostly what most investigators are out to try to get, because it's considered a Class A.
Most of them stuff to do, they want to see them.
A lot of times, yes, they will show themselves to who, for whatever reason, that person needs to see them. We don't know why. We don't understand why. But Larry could see a full body apparition tomorrow, and none of us would be able to see her because it's not for us to see. It would be something specifically designed for Larry to see. And there are some people that are here in the classroom today, by the way. A lot of other things that you will hear within the paranormal community is something that's called an intelligent haunting. An intelligent haunting is an entity that is aware of the presence of humans and may be interactive. It may be very well aware. It should be the second page, or well, technically third page, if you count from the front. An intelligent haunting is somebody who has a physical interactive with us. we can sit there and ask questions, and it can actively answer. Or it's electronic voice phenomenon, EVPs. Class A EVP is when you hear something that is said clearly, I'm not here, or he's here, or they're there, or there's five of us, something that is beyond a shadow of a doubt, you heard it, and it's there, and other people hear it, is considered an intelligent haunting. If it answers your questions directly. If you ask it to knock on a wall, or you ask it to knock a chair over, and it does, that's considered an intelligent haunting. A residual haunting, there it is. A residual haunting is a psychic recording of an event that is traumatic or violent. So basically, if somebody dies in a very traumatic or violent way, somebody was killed, somebody was murdered, somebody was committed suicide, things of that nature, they died in a car wreck, things like that, that is considered a traumatic event. It's considered a violent event. So therefore, it's repeated, and the entity does not interact with with the individual, with the humans, with the investigators. I've encountered those several times. Not too long ago, I had an incident like that. And it was a traumatic event that had happened to an individual, and they had killed themselves, and that is something that is not that's traumatic and violent in the manner in which he did it. But he's forced to relive that over and over again. I can talk to them. I can. If you see them and you try to talk to them and they don't answer you, that's why it's considered a residual. If they don't acknowledge you, it is considered residual. Whereas if they acknowledge you and they try to talk to you or they try to do something, that is why it's considered an intelligent. So that's the difference between an intelligent haunting and a residual haunting. Residual is one that does not interact with you, and intelligent is one that does interact with you. You're going to hear a lot of talk about equipment. Some of the definitions talk about some of the equipment, such as a K2 meter, which is considered an EMF meter that measures magnetic and electromagnetic fields and may be recalibrated for paranormal investigative uses. I have had really good evidence with using a K2 meter. Also, you have things like a mini DVD, a small version of the camcorder that plays and records tapes. You have, what is called an FLIR, which is a forward-looking infrared camera. It's used on investigations, but it's forward-facing. Instead of facing you, it's facing outward. It is an expensive piece of equipment. It is, but I've seen a lot of. I'm sure if you've ever watched like Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures, Tennessee Wraith Chasers, anything like that, a lot of times you will see them use these, which is the forward-facing infrared cameras. You will see a lot of those being used. Even little bitty tiny voice recorders, things of that nature. So there's a lot of aspects as far as technology. That's another reason why we're doing the fundraisers, is also to update some of our equipment. Something that a lot of people don't hear about, or they don't know the right terminology for, is what's called a Singapore method. And that is where an object or a piece of music from that time period, so like the Civil War or the Revolutionary War even, play music from that time frame, and they use it in order to recreate a rapport with the spirits. So let's say we go and investigate Perryville Battlefield. Okay? We can play drums, because a lot of times the battalions had drums that would go before them, that they would have those marching drums. And we could play those. We could play cannon fire or gunfire in the background. And that's something, this is what's called a Singapore method. So therefore, it uses objects or music or things to be able to recreate something for the spirits to help manifest. And they've even used it to gather energy, to be able to use it, to communicate. They also have ways of using those to create what is called the smells. A lot of times you can, and that's why another thing that our team doesn't do is I don't advocate wearing cologne or perfume when we go on investigations, but wear deodorant. Yes, and it's bad that I have to say that, but yes, but make sure you wear deodorant. But strong smelling cologne, strong smelling perfume, I don't, because spirits use smells as a way to communicate. So if we're on an investigation, we know everybody's not wearing cologne or perfume or whatever, and we're on an investigation, and all of a sudden we smell coffee, but nobody's drinking coffee. Nobody's brewing coffee. That is their way of communicating, or we smell pipe tobacco. Nobody's smoking because we don't.
Familiar cologne.
Or cologne that we know that nobody wears. It's things like that. Smells are imperative when you're investigating. If you're investigating and you get a whiff of something, keep it logged. Remember it, because then we can take that particular smell and have our researcher that does what they do best to research for this smell. Well, okay, did anybody in that time frame or at this particular place smoke pipe? Smoke a pipe tobacco. Things like that. So anytime we're at a location and something like that happens, always keep a log of it, because then we can, when we go back and review all of our evidence, hit the researcher up and say, hey, look, this is what everything that happened, everything that we experienced, we smelled pipe tobacco, we smelled cologne, but none of us were wearing any, see what you can find. And that's where the researching comes in. Which we have somebody who's very good at research, Miss Adina. Very, very good at research. Let's see. Poltergeists. Who knows about poltergeists? Poltergeists are always fun. Not really, but they are. They really can be. It's called a rare form of haunting wherein random objects are moved and sounds and speech are produced by unseen entities which seem to crave attention and recognition. Frequently, a child or adolescent is at the center of the phenomenon. So, we call a poltergeist a noisy ghost, is basically what we call that. It's a noisy ghost. But a lot of times, an adolescent or a child can produce enough energy, other than this, like a human child, like a living child, can produce enough energy to make things like that happen. Which is also called, I'm telling you what. Something else to consider is, what is called, it's on the small one, pressure changes. This measure of air pressure in a particular area, they document, a lot of paranormal researchers have documented changes in the pressure during an investigation. So we go, it's hot outside, we walk inside a building that has no air conditioning, but all of a sudden it's cold. Well, I mean, it would be cold enough to put a jacket on. Pressure changes. Our body can sense when pressure changes. Our bodies, some of us that have arthritis or that have other health issues, when pressure changes, we can feel it. So it could be changing because the weather is outside, or it can be changing because something paranormal is happening. So we always, that's another reason why we have to keep an eye on the weather when we're doing paranormal investigations too. Because we can look at it at 8 o'clock in the morning, oh, it's gonna be, 68 degrees outside and sunny, but we go inside and it feels like it's 105. In a place that has no heat or air conditioning, but it's 105. Called a hot spot. There's also cold spots. Cold spots are a lot where they believe that with cold spots, they believe that the paranormal happens when you feel a cold spot. You're going in, if we're outside investigating a cemetery, for instance, and it's 85 degrees outside, but you go over to one specific spot in the cemetery, and it feels like it's 65, but it's only in that spot. It's nowhere else, but it's just in that one spot. Consider a cold spot. Consider something paranormal is happening, or could be happening, or fixing to happen, or has happened. Yeah, I know. I don't know what's going on with it.
It's been aware down and ready to conclude.
Have anybody experienced sleep paralysis at all? Ever?
Sleep paralysis, no.
Sleep paralysis is a state between waking and sleeping, which one is paralyzed and experienced normally. Some people say experiences a dark presence and or feeling of oppression or suffocation. I've had it happen one time. It terrified me. I didn't sleep after that. When I finally eventually became fully awake, I didn't go back to sleep. And a lot of people think it's crazy that even happens. They think it's something mental, it's things like that, but it's not always that. Sleep paralysis can occur when paranormal experiences happen, especially if you're living in a place that is extremely haunted. Something else to think about when you're dealing with the paranormal is if there's been any renovations of any type to a building or a home or something to that nature, that can stir up paranormal activity. So let's say I get a home that's built in the 1860s. We're there for 6 months or so. Nothing's happened. No paranormal experiences, nothing's happened. But let's say we're going to start remodeling the bathroom. Well, we're going to start tearing down walls and scraping up floors and, changing things. So guess what? That's going to end up, or could end up, stirring up paranormal activity. Yeah, not just because it would be a house that's built in the 1860s, but your models going to get paranormal activity anyway. It's because of the time, the time frame and the era in which that house was built. But because you make changes to a place where a spirit is, they're used to it being that way. They lived and died with it that way, and then somebody comes in that they don't know that is changing it up. That's going to aggravate it. That's going to make it mad. That could make it mad. Let me rephrase that. Could make it mad.
When I was a kid, my dad experienced that at a house in Mayfield. It was a spirit that she had been told as a child, but we had no way of verifying it then.
Right.
That letter, she was just harmless at first. If she was hanging something on the wall, pound of the hammer, it was not back. There was one time when, and this was a red brick house. So if somebody knocked on the outside wall, you're not going to hear it on the inside. But I did. And this entity would, if the house was completely quiet, you could be sitting in the living room, the TV not on, no radio, nothing, you're sitting there talking. It would turn the radio on, or the TV. You turn it off, turn it right back on. Then my aunt decided she was going to remodel her bathroom.
I know a house just like that. You're living in it. We would be in the bedroom, sitting there talking or watching TV, and Lena or Ian or Darren or Jordan would come, yeah, Mom, what you want?
It will mimic somebody's voice in the house. I heard my son when he was here said they would just do that. But yeah, Mom, what do you want?
I don't know, man.
And she'll, I didn't say anything to you.
This entity that my aunt had,
That happened to me at work too, the other
Came all over
day.
the bathroom.
Every people over, 1, 2, 3, let's go.
We came all over her bathroom. She laid brand new carpet, wallpaper, I mean, she everything. Well, this entity came knocking. Normally, she'd knock back. It's a little game, harmless game. And she got mad. She did not want to play the game right then because she was busy. She left the bathroom for just a few moments, goes back in there, and everything she had done was taken off the wall and sent to the floor with the carpet up. Like, quickly. She wasn't gone very long. Yeah, my Aunt Debbie moved out of that house pretty quick after that.
I bet. I mean, and
But I've been following you on this.
yeah.
What you're saying and what she's saying, there's 2 different people in there.
It's lagging. It's lagging.
Yeah, it's lagging.
The 3 seasons behind her.
That's just and that's just the internet connection somehow.
Is this not picking up what you're saying?
Right.
But when it does, it's like you have somebody that doesn't understand English so well, and you're trying to put in words that sound like what you're saying.
Yeah.
What was that? That phrase, that one stuff? What was the outliner on one of them? It was behind. It's like watching the old Japanese film. The lips were moving, but you didn't hear anything. And then the words came.
Yeah.
Pardon the interruption.
Oh no, you're okay.
No, that was me, don't worry. This time it was me.
So a lot of people don't like to touch on, and some people that in the paranormal field don't like to touch on the topic of angels or demons. And I don't know if it's just because they don't choose to acknowledge or not. I acknowledge both. I have had experiences with both. One was completely puzzling because I was living in New York with my mom and my sister and my brothers, and we had broke down on the side of the road. We were under an overpass. It was the middle of summer. We were literally just a few feet from a gas station. So Mom walked to the gas station because we were still little. Mom walked to the gas station, get a gas can. She come back, but as I noticed she was coming back, there was a gentleman with her. So, you know, I'm protective over my brothers and my sisters. So I'm just like, you know, y'all just get up here, I'll be right here. And they were putting gas in the gas tank, and this guy looked up at me, and he winked, and he nodded at me. Now this area where we're at is under an overpass. There was no way this man could have gone anywhere without us seeing him going somewhere. I turned to say something to my brother or my sister, and when I turned back, the guy was gone. Like, gone. Like, gone. Like, he wasn't, like, walking down the road or, you know, up on the hill or nothing. Like, he was just gone. And we got over to the gas station, and Mom went in and asked the gas station attendant where the guy was that, you know, walked over to the car with her. Mm-hmm. And the gas attendant guy said there was nobody with her. He didn't see a gentleman walk from the gas station to the van with her, but I saw it. And and I didn't feel threatened. I wasn't scared. I was protective over my brother and my sister because this was a guy. You know, I've always been protective over my family. But literally, there was nowhere this guy could have started walking without us seeing him walking somewhere. Because we were literally under an overpass. So if he had walked up under the overpass, the top part of under the overpass, we would have seen him. If he had walked this way or that way, we would have seen him. If he even walked this way up onto the hill, right next to the overpass, we still would have seen him. I turned around and he was completely gone. So that's the first occurrence that I can remember of, I believe, that I saw an angel, that I encountered an angel. Because it was a very trying time in our life when we were younger at that time. And I think that was just a way of God acknowledging that, you know, hey, somebody's looking out for you. The occurrence with the demonic force was
scary. It's not something I encourage. If you don't know what you're doing, don't be messing with things you don't know nothing about. Because when you do, that's when all sorts of trouble happens. And I was with a group of people who did not know what they were doing. And we got attacked. It was a long time ago. And it was not fun. The door handle became hot to the touch, they tried to turn the doorknob to open the door to try to let us in.
Haley's with us.
Yay! Hi, Haley! They tried to open the door to try to get to us because, we were screaming, and they got burned by the door. I remember the screeching. I remember the smells were actually rancid, horrid smells. I mean, like you take some meat, rotten meat, that has been sitting out for days in like extreme heat, and that rancid, putrid smell. Like, I remember all of that. So it is not friendly. More times than not, demonic occurrences are very few and far between. Even right down to possessions, demonic possessions, those are very few and far between. Usually there's a rational explanation for demonic possession. Or somebody who claims to be demonically possessed, let me rephrase that. That I'm not well versed on it. I know what I've read. I know what I've studied. I know by talking to people who have dealt with things of that nature what I've learned. If I had to face it head on, would I? Probably. I would try. But I would definitely probably have to call in help at that point. And that goes with if we're on an investigation, and this is one thing that I do with the team, is that if, with an investigation, if Michelle comes to me and say, hey, I've got this really old building, it was built in 1740s, blah, 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 blah. But Larry comes to me and says, hey, I've got this family who's hearing, voices and knocking, and toys are going off when there's no batteries and it's in the off position. Because as a child, that is the case we will take first, always. And let's say, this is what the team is being told is happening, but we get there and it is something completely not that. We could walk into something that is considered a demonic infestation, at which point we would call in backup if we needed to.
But it's not always.
Not always the case. We get to the case, they say this is what they're smelling, this is what they're hearing, the scratching, the screeching, the knocking on the walls, in threes, everything that would be classic signs of a demonic attack, and we get there, and it's not. And we've done our thorough investigations, and it's not that. So no two investigations are ever the same. That's why it's always important to keep that open mind, because we don't want to go in and say, okay, well, this person's hearing voices, this person's hearing knocking, this person's hearing footsteps, and we get there with that mindset, this is what these people are hearing, and that turns out not to be the case. It's either not that or it's something more than that. That's where that open mind, and that's where keeping that line of thinking open, because you don't want to walk in with just what you're being told, which is a lot of reason why we do our residential investigations a little differently. It's kind of a lot like what Amy and Steve DeShavi does on dead files, especially the way I do it. Our team operates a little differently. We have 1 or 2 members that go in as the interviewers. They talk to the people. That's the part, kind of like if we were to compare, that would be like Steve DeShavi's part, going and doing the interviews, looking up the research about the property and the house and blah, blah, blah. And then when all of that was said and done, everybody comes out. Me, the homeowner, and one other person that was there during the interview would go in, and I would do my walkthrough. and tell them what I see or what I hear or what I feel, etc. And I started the team in 2011, and this is how I was doing the team before now. I mean, like, this isn't something that I just started doing. Like, I've been doing it this way since the beginning of the team in 2011. Now, in with Paranormal, we can, and because the name in part of the name of our team is the Removal Society, we do cleansings, and we do clearings. We try to help get rid of whatever's there. If we can't, we don't just walk away from the individual and say, okay, I'm sorry, we couldn't help, and then leave. Our goal is to stay with that team, not like stay, but stay in contact with that individual and help them figure out a solution. Or if necessary, call in reinforcements, another team, a clergy member, somebody who's more well-versed in to do what we could not. In clearings and banishing, a lot of people use sage sticks, white sage, what the Native Americans use. Smudging the houses, smudging the individual, cleansing that individual through sage. Prayer is another way of doing it. Saint Michael the Archangel prayer is another thing that can be done. I always encourage people, because our team is of different faiths, we do have prayer circles that do happen. Of course, everybody's welcome to join prayer circles, but if they don't feel comfortable doing so, they don't get discriminated, about it. If we're going to an investigation that could, let's say we're going to Waverly or Trans-Allegheny, those are lunatic asylums. Like, those were asylums for the mentally ill, the mentally unstable, the criminally insane. We know these places are going to be intense. So, those of us that wish to be in a prayer circle at the beginning, that's what we do. If you don't feel to be a part of that, and you have to do something that with your own path, your own faith, then by all means, you are encouraged to do so. But I think faith is a big part of it. I do. And I've seen it. I've seen people go from skeptics to believers. I've seen believers become even bigger believers in the paranormal because they might have had a few things here and there, and they're just like, oh, well, maybe that's what it is, maybe that's not what it is. And then they go on an investigation, and they get their hair pulled, or they get their shirt tugged, or they get tapped, or they see something flying across the room, and then they go from being somewhat believers to actual believers. And then sometimes they run out of the room. I've had that happen too. A friend of mine told me about a place in Virginia that was, if I remember right, that was the first ever lunatic asylum that was ever built in the United States. And they have seen grown men run screaming from this building. So when they say that it's not for the faint of heart, it's not for the faint of heart. The paranormal is not and will not ever be for the faint of heart. And mind you, this man is like 6'6", and he has seen men as big as he is running scared from this particular building. If you're no. Now, if we're on an investigation and stuff starts happening, people are getting scratched or they're getting attacked, then I will shut it down. I will regroup the team. We as a team will discuss if everybody is comfortable enough to continue, or if we need to shut it down for the night and revisit the next day and meet up the next morning at breakfast or whatever and decide if this is something we want to continue to investigate, or do we just want to shut it down completely. The safety of all the team members, as well as any guest investigators that come with us, is my first top priority. So we could be on an investigation at Waverly, and somebody sees a brick being thrown, or they get their hair pulled or shoved down, almost shoved down the flight of stairs, I will shut it down. We'll regroup outside, back at command center, and we'll go from there. Because the team, the safety, spiritually and physically, is what's important to me. Any questions so far? Comments? Anything?
No comments in the feed right now.
If anybody that is watching has any questions, y'all are more than welcome to chime in too. They'll get relayed. And orbs, another thing that people can see a lot in pictures are orbs. There's a lot of controversy around orbs. There really is, believe it or not. An orb is a non-paranormal object that are often captured in photographs and video footages. They are the results of light refracting off airborne dust particles, bugs, etc. However, I have seen some that are not that case. They are not lights reflecting off anything. It literally is watching something manifest and then leave, or coming into a frame, through a picture or on the video, when we're videoing. So when it comes to orbs, just be cautious with it. Don't sit there and be like, oh, hey, look what I caught. Because sometimes it's not even the case. Sometimes it's not an orb. Sometimes it really is just a dust particle, especially if we're going someplace dusty like Waverly or even Transocean. There's a lot of dust. There's a lot of asbestos. So that's something else to keep in mind when we're doing investigations. If we're at a residential and it's not dirty and an orb pops up in a picture or in a video, then obviously, that is something to take into consideration as well. We're going to take a slight break, and then we'll come back.
How long is the break for? 10, 15 minutes? Okay. I don't know if I can pause it or if I just have to stop it, and if I stop it, I don't know if it's going to restart a whole new one or not. It's going to take it.